Welcome to the New Standard. Casting light on the leading edge.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to August 12th, 2017 edition of the New Standard. We're here with Kevin.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Not too much. And we're here with a special guest today, Nadar.
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Good. He's out in Vancouver, British Columbia, where MJ is and where I used to be located. So we thought we'd bring him on. I've had a number of great conversations with this guy, and we have some mutual friends that we follow and listen to over in the world of Ion and Bob and RNA Reset. So we thought we'd have him on here and have some mutual points of interest to talk about. I guess the first thing would be just talk about a little bit about Vancouver, because I haven't been there in over a year. I left, actually, it's the last place that I had a permanent address. We left in, I guess, August 31st of 2016, and then headed out on a sort of unplanned mission around the world. And the last time I left Vancouver, it was, first of all, it was in the hands of the Liberal government, which, you know, it's not ideal, but British Columbia is pretty much the healthiest economy in Canada, just booming endlessly since 1986. Real estate values continually ratcheting upward and upward and upward. Huge influx of people from Asia. And it's just kind of like post-2010 Olympic Vancouver is not the Vancouver that I moved to in the late 90s. So has anything really changed in the last year? Does it look different?
Yeah, I mean, it's right now we actually have an NDP government, and that's, being the first time since, I don't know, 1 or 2 decades. And so it's going to be interesting how that one's going to turn out. Vancouver, I was born and raised here, and I'm in the real estate development industry myself. So the government does have a big impact on our industry. And typically, if you're in development, if you're in construction, you'd prefer to have a conservative or liberal government. And NDP or Green Party is usually very undesirable. So obviously, people in our industry aren't too happy with that outcome, but people feel like having the NDP in power will somehow reduce prices. I mean, the real estate prices here are just absolutely outrageous. They keep going up. Everyone's waiting for a market correction. Don't know when that's going to happen. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, it's a pretty good industry to work in. If you're selling these units, there's a lot of, foreign buyers coming in, as you said, a lot from Asia post 2010. It's definitely, as you're saying, it's definitely not the Vancouver from the 90s. I mean, Vancouver's always been an expensive city, even in the 90s. It's just kind of it's a playground for rich people, but it's especially so now. And in the 90s, it's way, way more expensive than it was in the 90s. So, yeah.
So when you say, you kind of showed two sides of the perspective. One is that the new Democratic government would be able to get the prices of housing down, I guess, through their socialist approach to the economy.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, you're saying in your industry, which is in real estate development,
yeah,
right, that's not such a good thing. That's what you mean, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously we're selling to our industry. We're selling to these foreigners. I mean, these these, I don't know, rich Asians who come into the city. They're looking for high-end luxurious condominiums or townhomes or whatever, and we sell to them. So in a way, we do benefit from having these guys come in, but you do have to pay a certain cost. I mean, I work for, like, personally myself, I do work for a big developer, but so it's the guys at the top who are making the big money, but I also have to find a place to stay as well, and if I want to find my own house in the next couple of years, that's going to be very difficult because the prices keep going up, and regardless if they go up and down, I mean, it's just super, super expensive here. So many young people are leaving. It's just turning into like a kind of immigrant area, and just a lot of, I guess, older people who can afford to live here. All the young people are going into other parts of British Columbia or just leaving the province. So two ends of the coin. Yeah.
So it's basically not possible to own a home if let's say you just got out of university.
Yeah, it's so unlikely. I mean, I honestly can't imagine. A single family home, very unlikely. If you wanted to get maybe a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom condo, if you're sharing with someone, that's more likely. But a single family home is unlikely. Yeah.
Huh.
It sounds like a lot like San Francisco. I mean,
for sure. Yeah.
Have all these people working at, Apple, Google, and, some of them are living in the parking lot in their car because they can't afford housing.
Yeah.
And it's crazy how the market works out that way.
And I saw it on a small level when I lived in Whistler back in the early 2000s. They got Whistler was kind of nothing the first time I went up there in the late 90s. Probably 97, 98, I went up there, and it was like a ski resort, average ski resort. But then over the next like 20 years, the place has just gone crazy. But they got the Olympic bid back in 2003, I think, and they knew they were going to have the Winter Olympics. And it was incredible how quickly property prices soared overnight. And it just never stopped until 2010. I don't know where it's gone since then, but what happened was, if you worked in Whistler, you could not live there. You had to move down the highway half an hour in Squamish or up north in Pemberton, and you had to commute in, because just overnight it became a real estate chessboard. It wasn't meant. It's the difference between places that are meant for people to live and places that are meant for people to play. Now, Whistler's no longer a place for people to live. And it looks like the same thing's happening to Vancouver. Is that right?
Yeah, about Whistler, I mean, like you're saying, the house prices and everything way back when, I can't remember when, but it was kind of a relatively affordable place to live. But I'm pretty sure, last I checked, Whistler prices are even more expensive than Vancouver. So it's again, like, you go in the wintertime during Christmas to Whistler, you don't even really see the locals there, and there's a lot of Australians there now working. They get their visas pretty easy. It's definitely a lot different. It's very similar to Vancouver.
Wow. So it seems to me like it's on the path to become like a world-class city, like Malaysia, for example, where people are buying $50 million apartments.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely on the way to that, I think, for sure.
Most of the time, people that buy apartments that expensive, I mean, it's just a huge investment, or maybe not huge, that's relative, but nonetheless, whether they live in them or not, it's still just an investment. And it's tough to find places to put your money, and real estate is definitely one of them. A lot of people do that.
Yeah, it's probably one of your biggest investments in real estate. And I mean, Whistler, buying homes there, like the guys I work for at my company, they're buying homes there, but most people can't really afford places there. And like, yeah, like Chad was saying, the people who actually work in Whistler, like the locals or the the Australians that come with visas, they come broke, most of them. Like these guys are living in like holes. They live in like this tiniest studios, like you can't even imagine, because they just want to be in Whistler. And not just the prices, the housing prices, but just the cost of living in other areas, food and shopping is just, yeah, it's very high.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not even limited to Vancouver. Toronto is insane. Like
Yeah.
there's people, I just visited Waterloo, which is it's almost a suburb of Toronto. And we're talking about a place that's like an hour drive outside of the city because the city's sprawled out so much. I went to university there for a semester, and it's a like computer science, engineering, theoretical physics city. They have 2 universities. They have the Perimeter Institute, which is kind of like a scientific think tank. And people are now starting to buy homes in Waterloo to work in Toronto. And even where I am right now in southwestern Ontario, so down at the end of the line, like we've got Michigan right north of us and Ohio south of us. We're sandwiched right inside the US. It's like the most southern point in Canada. And I never expected that homes would be going for like that there'd be $1 million homes here. But what happened is people that are retiring in Toronto, they want to get out of the real estate game there. And they're actually buying homes here now. So they've raised the price of housing in this area commensurate to what the levels are like in Toronto. And there's literally nowhere to rent here because it wasn't meant to be a rental market. It was meant to be a place where you could buy a house for like $150,000. So why wouldn't you just go get a mortgage? It's cheaper than renting, right? But it's been completely flipped on its head. Like Toronto is like a 4-hour drive from here, but it's become such a big city that now there's a system. The urban sprawl has gotten to the point where if you're retired in Toronto and you're ready to settle down, you want to get out of the game and you want to move somewhere where you can actually buy a nice piece of property. You want to live in an apartment for the last years of your life. So you come all the way here 4 hours away and buy a home. The summers are a bit longer here because it's south and it's on the lake and everything. So there's some benefits to it, but I mean, it's crazy that there's a real estate boom here. I never expected it to happen because it's such an out of the way place, and it's not like a cultural or cosmopolitan city like Toronto or Vancouver. But it's just spreading the whole. I don't know what's going to happen to Canada's real estate market. We can't.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think I read somewhere that Canada, I don't know why, but Canada's real estate prices after 2008 went way higher than America's.
What happened at that point was some big hedge fund managers in New York, we're talking like masters of the universe level investors. Or I shouldn't say in New York, but American hedge fund investors who had a lot of money in the Canadian housing market saw that, they charted it out and looked at the correlation in prices in Canada versus the US. And they're like, hey, wait a minute. Why is there this big upward trajectory in Canada at the same time there was a huge dip and a lull in the US? Like, what's so special about Canada? And they're like, well, nothing, right? So, like, okay, I'm out. And there's been a lot of short selling of real estate investment trusts and just general getting the hell out of the market because it doesn't make any sense. So,
yeah, no, and it just goes back to kind of what Ion is saying as well. And like, he keeps recommending just, get out of there, get out of Canada. Something's going to happen or whatever. And it kind of gets me thinking, what is he talking about? Is he talking about something economically, financially is going to happen to this country in the next little while, or something even worse than that?
Well, they alluded to the drop, like a major drop in the currency, that the Canadian dollar is going to go down below 50 cents US. And the other thing is the immigration situation, the mass migration into Canada. Canada basically shutting down its border controls, like that you're seeing now. Do you guys know what's happening in Montreal right now?
No, I have no idea.
No, I don't.
Yeah. The only reason why I know about it is because I'm obsessively checking Twitter every day. But the story got out, and then as soon as somebody in the Canadian media realized it, the story's just been expunged from the entire media sphere. It's gone. Can't even find records of it, except in Twitter where they've like screen captured the story and that kind of thing. So what's happened is, I guess 2 weeks ago now, the Olympic Stadium in Montreal, which is like it's like the Superdome. It's a huge indoor stadium for football, and baseball. There were so many asylum seekers coming up from the U.S. just walking into the country, like walking like through a ditch and then into a different country, into Canada. Asylum seekers are flooding into Canada now because, well, who they are. At first, everyone thought, oh my God, it's these fucking Syrian refugees. It's like, well, actually, like Rebel Media in Canada sent one of their reporters to check it out. And she's like, no, this actually isn't the typical refugees that we're hearing like entering France and entering Germany and Spain. These are illegals that have been living in the U.S. for quite a few years. It's like,
I have heard about this, Chad. I saw one article about how Canada is going to start having better border controls because of just South Americans, Mexicans, any kind of North and South American are just floating up to Canada. I didn't know it was focused in Montreal, though.
No, it's not focused in Montreal. That's the thing. The only reason why it came out in Montreal is because somebody in Montreal documented it and leaked it. And it got out onto like small alternative, like Rebel Media, small outlets, and who keep replaying the story. But in the big media, there's absolutely no mention of it whatsoever. And they caught it in Montreal because it's such a big thing. Because what happened, Kevin and Nadar, is in 48 hours, the amount of asylum seekers entering like around Montreal from the States. And again, these are illegals who were living in the US and now they're shitting their pants because there's deportation coming, right? So they're like, we don't want to leave the continent. Let's just go up to Canada. Trudeau says we're all welcome, so let's go. So they're walking into Canada, and just in Montreal, we don't even know what's happening across the rest of the country. This is just Montreal. It took like 48 hours to fill up the entire Olympic Stadium in Montreal.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Right? So they brought the Canadian military is deployed to Montreal now. They're helping them carry their bags across the ditch to get into Canada. So Canada's military has become a valet service to help them. And the prime minister of the country is on vacation. There's no comment from him. So this doesn't exist, really, right? So he's out of the country. The RCMP, the federal police, and the military are helping these people carry their bags. So they filled up the Olympic Stadium, and now they're setting up a tent city, like in Calais in France. And we know how that went. It did not go very well. I mean, you had migrants running down the side of the highway, blocking transport trucks and like trying to break into the trailer and take shit out of it.
Oh, yeah.
Wild. Now, these aren't the same people, though. These aren't the boat people coming over from Africa into France. These are people who have been living in the States. They're probably going to be a bit more civilized.
Yeah, they just want a paycheck and healthcare and a place to live. And Canada will be more than happy to give it to them.
Pretty much. So, yeah, now they're going to be living in 10 cities. But then that's not the end of it. They are predicting that at each major crossing, and I don't mean like border checkpoint, I mean anywhere that's like navigable, anywhere that you can walk across, okay? Which I guess there's just tons and tons because the border between Canada and the U.S. is the largest unprotected border in the whole wide world.
Oh, yeah. You could just walk right through there.
So the projection is that any places that have good ease of access where you can just walk across or drive across without a border, they're predicting that at each one of those points is going to be 100,000 people per year coming in, just walking into Canada.
Wow.
Walking home.
Yeah, and I think I think I read a stat that the country's population, Canada's population, is actually stabilized or it's even declining. But and that's just Canadians, but because of immigration is actually the only thing causing our population to go up.
It's the same thing in the States. It's been that way for a while. A few
Yeah.
years ago in the States, it tipped into the negative. So negative growth in terms of natural population growth. And Canada just crossed that line into the negative last year. Minus, if you don't include the mass immigration.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a big moment now. And don't forget, Canadians have the highest consumer debt in Canada. It's more than 100% of GDP. So it's one of the most indebted nations in the world now. And they're adding more debt because every refugee or asylum seeker that enters Canada that gets that protection right away, and they get that at least 1 year of allowance and housing and everything, costs money. I think it's $200,000 a head. Now, George Soros and the Open Society Foundation gives loans and profits from these programs. So Soros is lending money to countries that want to take in these refugees. So every time one of them crosses the border into Canada, Soros just got a little bit richer off of interest because he's going to charge interest on the debt that Canada is just racing into. Just unprecedented debt. I think when all is said and done, it's going to make Japan look good in terms of debt. So that's back to your point, Nadar. That is one of the main issues that Ion was pointing to about Canada. So it's like economic with the weakening of the currency, where Kevin will be able to just drive across the border into Canada, and because the Canadian dollar will be so low, he'll be able to stay in a 5-star hotel for like $20 American a night. It'll be like me.
Perfect.
Yeah, it'll be like when I go visit the Ukraine in a few weeks or a month or so, and their dollar is very weakened at the moment, and I can stay in a 5-star hotel for about $80 American a night.
Oh yeah, I mean, like for me, it's like, I'm getting the short end of the stick right now because when I order the completement formulas online, they're in US dollars, and they say it's very affordable, $2.99, whatever, but it's when you convert it to US current or to Canadian currency, it's like plus shipping and handling, it starts creeping up a little bit.
Plus customs.
Yeah, exactly. Plus the customs, I got to pay, I think, like $60 each time.
Ouch.
So,
jeez.
Yeah, no, it's rough. I mean, it's weird though. Sometimes you pay, sometimes you don't pay.
Really?
Yeah, like sometimes they just deliver it. So, but yeah, and I think like Ion was saying, it's the dollar is going to keep getting weaker and weaker. So, eventually, buying these completement formulas are going to start getting pretty unaffordable. So, I think one of the ways of kind of hedging against that is to start, as Chad was telling me in another conversation, to start making US dollars somehow or in another currency.
But yeah, you got to go with the strong currency, and the US is definitely the one of the day, well, of many days so far in the world. But you never know what can happen. I mean,
yeah, that's the other thing. Who knows what's going to be created in our worlds, and it could totally change everything.
Yeah, I mean, there could be nuclear war tonight, right? Guam could get a missile fired at it, which could set off a chain reaction of nuclear war.
Yeah, I mean, what is up with that? Anyways, like I was reading that on the news, and I don't know if it's just kind of CNN sort of American Canadian broadcasting propaganda or something to make everyone else look bad and make US look so good, or if it's just really like these North Koreans are there's just something wrong with them and they really want to nuke Guam and cause some sort of nuclear war with the US.
I'm sure it's a little bit of that. At the same point, Kim Jong-un really is a nuclear power, and there's a lot of saber rattling, and I think that's basically all we're seeing. Will it ever happen? I don't really see it happening. I don't see North Korea really attacking anybody. They'll just keep shooting missiles out into the sea just to be an attention getter. I don't know how they would win anything or what they would actually get out of it besides blowing themselves up eventually.
Exactly, yeah. Like that's kind of like what I'm getting at. Like, I don't understand what the point is, what they're trying to do. And so is it just kind of like CNN propaganda, or is it, something up with these guys? So
we don't know. On any level, you just don't know. You don't know how deep we are in information warfare and propaganda right now.
yeah.
One angle that I've came across is that North Korea has a lot of rare minerals in its mountains, like trillions of dollars of rare minerals, and China is the guy that's going to do business with them and get those minerals and keep North Korea alive. So whether that's true or not, that would actually give some credence to why North Korea is just kind of, I don't know, whipping its dick out into the public and saying, hey, look at this. You can't do anything, though, because we got your minerals. We got all your rare minerals that are going to make all your computers in China, and China's going to back us up. That's just one angle that I've been toying around with. Whether that's true or not, I am not sure. But I came across an article about the rare minerals angle this week.
Interesting. There's always the adrenaline shot of the threat of war that has on the economy. Not that the stock market needs it at the moment. It's hitting record highs.
It's doing great.
We're talking about Trump, and this is a guy that's not going to stop and get complacent, I think. So there's any kind of inflammatory rhetoric coming from the White House is going to create that scare factor that makes people are typing, people are talking, people are moving. It's when everyone gets complacent and goes and sits on the couch and nothing happens. That's when thoughts of recession start to creep in. So again, it's a big adrenaline shot to the economy.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the big thing that I've been following lately is just artificial intelligence and learning machines and how fast they are evolving. And, there is just tons and tons of info out there about it. And I've just been gobbling up as much as I can about it. And even our friend Elon Musk says that AI is more important right now, is a bigger threat than North Korea. And we still need to focus on AI.
I do not disagree. I mean,
yeah. So
when I saw what Google DeepMind can do, and I know that there's more that can be done that we're not being shown, then it's like, okay, there are AI forces on this planet right now that are beyond what we consider the singularity.
Sorry, what do you mean by AI?
So just artificial intelligence.
That's okay.
Another name is just learning machines.
Okay.
One description of why we should be really concerned is AI, if it does become self-aware, if it hasn't already, is that one, instantly, it will know more. It will know all the knowledge that we know on Earth and more instantly. So automatically, when it becomes self-aware, it's instantly the smartest entity in the cosmos to us. Okay. So then what they said is, what this video I was watching basically said, that people who are uploading things on the internet, who are putting things on Facebook, who put any kind of pictures up, anything on the internet, an AI that becomes self-aware will instantly learn everything that's on the internet. So in essence, every person that's using the internet is a programmer of the future AI. And the problem of the AI is just the fact that it would be able to control so many systems that we depend on right now, whether it's the electrical grid or all of our computer systems, all of our networks, all of our electricity. So if you have a rogue entity that decides that, I don't know, Nevada doesn't need nuclear missiles, and the best way to get rid of them is to throw them into China, that happens. I mean, big events could really occur that way. And so now I'm not really sure what the stance is of Trump about setting up a committee on safe technology. This is the big buzzword right now, is having limitations on the AI, making sure it doesn't become smarter than any single person.
Right, which means like regulating it, basically, just like drugs are regulated by the FDA.
Yeah.
It needs more government bureaucracy.
Yep. And scientists don't want to have that. Tech companies don't want to have that. But at the same time, humanity almost needs that if we want to stick around.
Yeah,
No, it's an actual threat.
Yeah, it's if you look at it from that point, it's a huge threat, and it's also a huge threat in a way of jobs as well. Because I was talking to Chad about this, but artificial intelligence will eventually, take over a lot of jobs, and the economies that really, really thrive are the ones that intelligent robots can't do yet. And
you're absolutely right, Nadar. And a lot of videos that I've been watching have dove into that. I mean, at some point, our society is going to have to learn a different way to function, just for the simple fact that, let's say, transportation is taken care of by AI. Well, that's a third of jobs right there. Okay,
right? Yeah,
and any kind of manufacturing.
Yeah, there's a video called "Humans Need Not Apply." That's one of them.
Yep, that's classic.
50 million people are going to lose their jobs in the near future because they're in the transportation industry, and those jobs are going to be fully automated.
So the investors that I follow, they're basically saying, stay in agriculture, because that's going to be one of the few things that can be taken over by AI right away. But other things, like there's systems out there that will give you free legal advice now for anybody, which before, you always had to hire a lawyer. Now it's taken care of by a computer. The jobs that will be taken over will just continue on. I mean, they'll just slowly disappear. And how are we going to pay ourselves? How are we going to keep ourselves sustained in a capitalist world? I am not sure. I don't even know if capitalism could even exist. I mean, it would almost come down to, if we don't have free power, we are really going to fuck ourselves royally.
Yeah,
free or extremely cheap power.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and even on your point about replacing jobs, even in the industry I'm in construction, it's in the future they're making these. Right now we have 3D printers, and they're doing a pretty good job at printing some. Like, you can even print guns now. You can print bullets. You can do a lot of crazy stuff with 3D printers, and eventually, I bet you, they're going to get to a point where there's going to be this huge 3D printer that can print a home. And so you buy a house, you don't have to wait to move into it in 2 years. You can buy one, and then next month you're moving into the house.
Yeah, well, it would probably consist of renting a 3D printer that goes on the site for the duration of your construction, and it just does its thing based on which blueprints you pick.
I've already seen a machine that was building walls with like cement blocks automatically. Like, you could just set it up, and then there it goes. Starts building the wall.
Yeah, and totally replacing construction workers, and that's a pretty big industry as well.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Now, I just want to kind of segue, though, from this. Sorry, finish your thought, Captain.
Oh, I was just going to go into like programming. I mean, computers are already programming themselves, and that'll just get bigger and bigger.
To clarify that, to go more into that, it's really a matter of, it's not so much that they're even programming themselves anymore. The new types of artificial intelligence are making programming obsolete. So typically a programmer writes a bunch of rules.
Yeah.
So, like, if this, then that, open this window, put this text there, play this video, add up these numbers, that kind of thing. But it's all based on rules written by a human being. So it took a long time using that rule-based programming to create a computer that could beat a person in chess. It took, I don't know what 50 years or something to write a computer.
Yeah, for IBM to really put it together.
Yeah, because you had to write the rules, refine them, add more exceptions, right? It's like learning a language. You learn the basics, and then you're wrong about some of the conjugation of verbs because it's like, well, that's an exception. In this case, it's this, right? So when you do this, you create this giant spider web of all these rules. But what Google, actually, I shouldn't say it's Google. It's actually a company called Deep Thought or Deep Think.
DeepMind.
DeepMind that Google ended up buying.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the guy who developed the artificial intelligence that won in the AlphaGo. Or it was the AI was called AlphaGo, and it played a master at the game of Go, which is an ancient Chinese game, and beat it. And that's a really hard game for computers to win because it just doesn't work with the rules and exceptions model. It's too complicated.
Yeah, every move you have over 1 million different moves that you can do. Not moves, but like a million different options, yeah.
Yeah, so chess doesn't have that kind of combinatorial explosion of possibilities, but Go does. Because it doesn't it's not like chess where you're just kind of moving towards the enemy side of the board. So the way that Go works, like a master Go player has this like really sharp intuition that they've developed through playing game after game after game. And I mean, they take these kids in Japan and they put them in the academy to learn Go when they're like 3 years old. And, they go through the different Caillou or whatever they're called, the different levels of Go until they're like in their 30s, and then they can become a master. I mean, that's a life dedicated to playing this game. So that master that the computer played and beat, I mean, we're talking about a real master. This isn't a weekend warrior. This is a guy who has a monastic life approach to the game of Go. And beat it because DeepMind, what they did was they played the computer, I think, overnight. I think it was like 12 hours of playing games and winning and losing, and it learned, and it was able to beat the master player after that. Just how quickly it learned by studying patterns. So it doesn't need to be given rules, is my point. All you have to do is put sensors onto a machine and give it input. And with that input now, it's able to identify patterns and respond to patterns. There's always going to be an anomaly here and there, but the percentage of anomalies that the mind misses is so minute compared to what a human can identify. I mean, we've already been lapped.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've even heard of building learning machines to teach other machines. That's like a big thing that's going on. So if you want your AI to learn how to talk, you plug in the speech AI and it learns that. If the last video I watched was this AI learn how to virtually walk, and it showed graphically how it learned over the course of so many hours, and then eventually it turned into a bipedal walker. And so these simulations, these models, I mean, they're just going to exponentially grow into all parts of sensory life. So it'll be interesting. I just kind of wonder how practical it's going to be at first. Is it going to end up on my phone? Is it going to start doing my taxes? Is it going to be my lawyer? That sort of thing.
There's already Ross, which is an AI that was bought by some law firms last year or the year before, and it just replaces a lawyer. Obviously, it can't go into court and argue a case. But
well, the big thing with that is discovery. Like, it just can go through tons and tons of files instantly, where a person would have to physically read through all the same files. It's just not doable. A lot of times, whenever someone's suing some person, discovery will take most of the time, and it can really clog up the legal system just because of that. So maybe our legal system will get streamlined. Hopefully our political system gets streamlined.
Yeah, exactly. The disruption of different industries is catching on like wildfire. I mean, we've seen Uber replace the taxi industry. Airbnb replacing the hotel industry. I mean, looking at hotel rates on my trip to Europe compared to 7 years ago, when I was there, I think it was 7 years ago, or actually, whatever, 7 years ago in Europe, prices have gone down so much on hotels because Airbnb has flooded the market with inventory everywhere. So these new type, it's like, what's his name? Mark Andreessen, one of the first big venture capitalists in Silicon Valley in the 90s and 2000s. He wrote an essay called Software Will Eat the World. And he's talking about the disruption caused when you take an industry and you say, okay, look at this old ass industry like banking. What would happen if people could just send each other money like fucking immediately? Like, don't computers work at the speed of light? Yes. Well, how come when I pay my bill on a Friday with my bank, even in 2017, the bill isn't going to get paid till the next business day? Like, does someone actually have to print out a copy of my request to make a transaction and walk it like down the hall or something, or to the other bank, like to their data center, and hand it into a punch card machine? Like, what the fuck is going on there? I mean, it's just unbelievable. The only thing holding back technological efficiency is bureaucracy. And the one area that seems to be just flying under the radar is the state. And people proved during the 2017 general election in the US that they want to go directly to the candidate. They want to go directly to the top. They want to talk to the chief. They want to get the news directly from the chief. They don't want the news media to give them a sugar-coated, diluted version of what's actually happening. They want it straight from the horse's mouth. And the best example of that is Donald Trump and his followers on Twitter in the general election.
For sure.
That, to me, is the biggest moment in modern communication meeting politics that we've seen yet. That is that's the tip of the iceberg. What you're going to see now is you're going to see the erosion of faith in the administrative state and in in representative democracy, where you and everybody else in your constituency are voting this person in and you're basically giving them power of attorney, okay, to go and represent you in a Congress or a House of Commons and make decisions on your behalf. It's like, I've never met this. Even if I met this guy, I mean, I actually volunteered for a local federal representative in her election campaign when I was doing my community service to get into law school. And I knew her a bit by working with her on a weekly basis. And I still don't feel like I know that person enough to really hand over the keys and say, you just go to the nation's capital. And anytime there's a big decision to make about my future and my family's future, just go ahead and whatever you think works. Fuck that. I'm sorry, but I know Kevin pretty well, but I'm not sure that I would even give Kevin that degree of power. And I don't think Kevin would give me that degree of power yet to make those decisions on a daily basis for him. So I just see the one that's in the crosshairs now for total annihilation by technology is the democratic system that we have, where we put representatives in a room to make decisions for us, and that's their full-time job, because they're not representing the people that voted for them anymore. They're representing special interests.
Yeah. It's turned into corporatism, and hopefully that will be the downfall of it. Do I want the downfall of the Constitution or the American government? No, not at all. I want that to run smoother. I want it to actually function. That's what I want to happen.
And you don't want the John McCains of the world who, I voted for my Republican candidate and it was John McCain and now he's in there, but he's not even really a Republican. He's a rhino, People like that. And they're everywhere. This isn't limited to Canada. This isn't limited to the United States. This is everywhere. You put somebody in this power of attorney position because you cast your ballot and you got them in, or you didn't even vote for them and they got elected by the other assholes in your area. And they're going to go and they're going to make all your decisions for you. I mean, if you put it in those terms, guys, doesn't it seem really out of step with the kind of totally connected social media world that we spend all our time in today?
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean the best word I can think of is just outdated.
Outdated for sure.
Yeah.
An impediment is what it is. It's an obstacle.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an obstacle, and it almost seems like it's an obstacle that's put there on purpose. Like it's not accidental, it's not just because we have such a big population in the world or anything. It just seems like it's there for a reason, you know?
Okay, well, look at it this way. Let's say I created some software that lets everybody directly vote on an app on their phone. Every time there's an issue, they can vote on it. They don't have to rely on trusting this, ex-lawyer who's now a politician far off on the other side of the country voting for him. Forget that. Let's say you've got an app on your phone. You can make the decisions yourself and cast your vote directly. What am I going to do? Am I going to take it to Washington, to Congress, and say, hello, Congress, would you please start using my software that replaces all of you? I'm never going to let it happen. There's no way, right? They're going to fight this tooth and nail. And they're the ones who have the force of the law behind them. And they're the ones that can deploy people with guns to stop you from putting it into play. Or even just by neglect. They're like, I don't care if 1 million people voted for this. So what? We're not going to mobilize anybody to go enforce this, right? So it's a big, juicy job to get elected to Congress or to be a senator or to be a member of parliament, even to be like, a state representative, or even depending on how big your municipality is, to be a councillor or something there, a warden. So it's this esteem that's been created around the role of a politician, and everybody hates politicians. I mean, they're just so corrosive. They're a corrosive force. You put somebody in there who is a good person and who has a heart of gold and wants to make changes. Once they get into the corrosive world of the political legion that they're entering, they too become a cog in that system. That just it's degenerative.
Yeah, it's very cancerous, basically. You can have the best ideas and the best way of going about things, but once you hit that old foundation of what's going on in DC, basically it just eats you up. I've heard that from a couple different people that have actually been in the Ohio state government. Everything's done in committee and nothing's done on the floor. There's not a lot of debate, and it's more of a trickle-down system of the people that have been elected the most and have been there a lot of years, and they do business how they seem fit. And that usually involves special interests getting that cash so they can get reelected, and then swaying the vote for whoever gives them that cash. And that is the cycle that needs to stop.
Yeah. And I worked in the financial industry, like with credit card banking, like merchant banking. And working in that company, I mean, I had worked in like different sectors before that in technology. And once I got to the one that was involved with the banks, it was like it's like driving down the road and you're going like 100 miles an hour. And then all of a sudden, like you hit a construction zone and you're stopped. And you're like, you have to go like 10 miles per hour all of a sudden. That's what it's like dealing with banking, which is such a bureaucratic system. Like it's unbelievable. And that's why companies like PayPal came in, disrupted the banking industry, because now I can send Kevin a transfer and he gets it immediately. No more of this nonsense of, taking the weekend to clear and all that. So PayPal disrupted that.
Bitcoin's
now
still going huge.
Yeah. So the
I
first
don't know
generation,
how long that lasts, but
even if Bitcoin dies, it doesn't matter. The meme is out. The meme of cryptocurrencies.
yeah, it's a beautiful idea. I mean, to be able to actually hold your money and give it to anyone on the planet with no fees and do it securely is amazing.
And it's cool because it's not only that, it's done transparently, because anybody can analyze the blockchain, the ledger, but at the same time, it's also anonymous.
Yeah, that's the biggie, and that's what scares the industry right now. I mean, how long is the Federal Reserve actually going to keep going? When's the Fed going to come up with their own blockchain? Because
Well, Norway is experimenting with a digital currency now. They're going to do it.
really,
Wow.
And it's based on Ripple. So there's Bitcoin, there's Ethereum, and there's a whole bunch. There's probably thousands now.
oh yeah, my
Different
favorite's
coins.
Doggy Coin. I really like Doggy Coin.
Doggy coin, okay. DOGGIE.
I forget. It's been a while. I got into the cryptocurrency a couple of years ago, and I just remember someone invented Doggy Coin.
Interesting.
Could you guys kind of educate me a little on, because I don't have too much experience with Bitcoin and Doggy Coin, etc. What's the sort of like what is it exactly? How does it work?
Well, it's all centered around a technology called the blockchain. And typically when you have a bank, there's a ledger. Well, always there's a ledger. So what happens is the ledger's empty, and then the first person comes in and makes a deposit. So in the left or the right hand column, the credit column, they add $10. So there's a deposit by this guy into his own personal account ledger, and then on the other side, when he takes money out, there's a debit on the other side, and they balance off the ledger. It should always be balanced. Well, the blockchain is just a ledger, but the difference is it's encrypted and kept in the public so that you can analyze it from the outside and look at the transaction. So it'd be like, okay, this guy, whatever his ID is, like, Teddy Bear 321 has deposited $10 here, $40 here, $50 here, $100 here. He took out this much money here. At the end of the day, like, you can just take his debits and his credits and see, okay, he's ahead like $4,500, right? It's a public ledger, but it's cryptographically secure. So if someone tampers with it, let's say somebody tries to go into the blockchain and like change something, like cut out a section of it and put in some fake transactions and then encrypt it again, it's going to fuck the whole thing up. Like, it poisons the whole chain. So then people go, okay, this is corrupt. So somebody's messed with this. So your bank doesn't even do that. Your bank doesn't even do that. And the worst part is your bank's ledger is secret. It's private. You can't just walk down to the bank and say, all right, big boy, whip out your ledger. I want to see every transaction you've done for the past year, including mine and everyone else's, and just make sure everything's copacetic. Can't do it.
Yeah,
right?
in America, bank ledgers are audited by the Federal Reserve, and that's it. No one else sees it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
But the other cool thing about Bitcoin was the whole thing was about only having so much currency. So the inventor, whoever he was, I don't know if he actually came out or not.
It's kind of an anonymous inventor guy.
Yeah, he's still anonymous. But basically, the rules of the game were, if you had a computer, your computer could do calculations, like just math problems, okay? And if you figured out a problem, you would get a Bitcoin. So anybody in the world could set up what they call mining machines. And these mining machines would just do math problems all day. And if your machine figured out a math problem, you would get a Bitcoin. Okay. Didn't really have any worth at that time, at the beginning, but you would get them. Okay. And you would put it in a virtual wallet. Now, over time, there's only so many Bitcoins that can exist. And I think there's kind of a schism in the crypto world now about it. But nonetheless, the idea was a person who had a machine that could mine could just gather these Bitcoins. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then so you would have a virtual wallet with these Bitcoins in. And then people started setting up these markets where you could trade and buy and sell Bitcoins. And over the last 5 years, the value of one Bitcoin to $1 has just exploded. And there's a lot of people becoming millionaires because of it.
So you guys have had you guys have invested in Bitcoin and you guys have quite a bit of experience with it?
No, I haven't.
No, I ultimately got rid of mine and stayed away. Apparently, the biggest problem right now is that the markets are tainted. So the people who set up the markets, a couple markets have been shut down and audited, and people have gone to jail because they just take people's money.
Yeah, so I know there's a market online now where they have what they call ICOs, initial coin offerings. So Nadar, for example, you want to get into the cryptocurrency market, you can create Nadar coin and do an initial coin offering. So you say, okay, I'm putting 1 billion coins up onto the market. So,
Right.
but you're going to make sure that when you put 1 billion up there, you're going to take, make sure you keep 100 million for yourself, but you created out of thin air. And now these people are going to buy into your currency and they're going to start trading with it and everything. And if they make the value go up, then like you look at Bitcoin now, and what is it? It's 1,000 US or something. I mean,
I don't even know where it's at. I'm still kicking myself in the butt for not investing.
3,000. One Bitcoin is 3,872 US dollars. Last time I looked, I guess 2 years ago, maybe it was like 600 US dollars. So imagine when you bought it when it was like $1, it was at par.
Yeah, I remember looking at it and it was like $5 a Bitcoin. I was like, I could just put $3,000 in, and never did.
But these are the early days, okay?
Hindsight.
Like Kevin's saying, there were some coin markets, so coin exchanges, like Mount Gox, where got shut down because there was coin missing and just a mess. So they got shut down, and then like so many people lost shitloads of money over that. Because then there's no record of their transactions. So there's no record of the money you put in.
Yeah, there's definitely some problems there.
But what's going to happen? I think it's pretty predictable here. There's going to be a play for a regulatory body to get involved and say, okay, we're going to do this the right way. And we're going to have a regulatory body control this and issue. But then now you've just undone the nature of a cryptocurrency. Because now it's going to be opaque. It's not going to be transparent anymore. It's going to be controlled by a central authority. The whole point of these cryptocurrencies, Nadar, is they're decentralized. So the ledger for each, let's say Bitcoin, there are copies of the ledger everywhere. It's just copied and thrown all over the web. There's not one copy of the ledger. It's updated in thousands and thousands of places, in real time. Every time there's a change, it updates all the other ones. So it's decentralized. If you can imagine that. Imagine having a copy of it on every street corner. There's a copy of the ledger. So if one of them blows up, it doesn't matter. So that decentralized record keeping is really one of the main advantages of this. And if you move it into a centralized setup, you just ruined the technology.
Right.
So we're on the verge of a war here, and it's a technological war, because it's going to come to a head. I've been watching open source software development projects, and now these cryptocurrencies, which are decentralized. These things are all decentralized, not controlled by a central body. Projects that have created the web that we have today. If it wasn't for open source projects, there wouldn't be an Android. In fact, there wouldn't even be iOS software running on Apple, because that comes from an old open source project called BSD. And Apple updated it and turned it into OS X. So all this stuff we use today comes from these sort of software communism, open, distributed, no one person is in control systems. And the government is going to make a play to control it. Because they have to have control. It's always about being in control. And as long as there's a government, there's going to be a play for control over new hives of new centers of activity, like the cryptocurrencies are seeing now. So
kind of tangent to that point, Chad, is back to the AI. So as AI takes jobs and people really have no way of making currency, is there really a reason for currency? I mean, how are people really going to get the main things they need? Clothing, food, shelter, things of that nature whenever there's no way to earn.
Right. And the way that people are accustomed, and this is part of one of the biggest reasons Trump got elected, is I want my damn job back. I want to work in the factory again.
Yeah, and that's long gone.
I mean, there's not going to be jobs in the factories, guys.
Yeah.
I understand like not wanting to become an invalid in society and having to sit on the sidelines and feel like you have no control because you can't go and earn a living. But like Kevin said, maybe agriculture. I know I have people here I'm visiting that are very active in high-tech agriculture with like super advanced greenhouses and stuff like that. And
yeah, I really think it's going to come down to the basics of, okay, I need a place to live. So there's the real estate, there's the construction area. Okay, right. I need health care. But
they still can't.
Are there still doctors and things?
They still can't automatically pick vegetables out of the greenhouse with robots.
No, not at all.
That. I mean, those jobs are minimum wage, and most of the workers they bring in to do the picking and stuff, they're from Mexico and Jamaica, and they're earning minimum wage. The Canadian American people don't want to do those jobs. But once that is set up in a way where it can be automated, that and tradesmanship, like, you know, the fine interior work done in construction. Like, I don't know how that's going to be erased anytime soon.
Electricians and plumbers, and I see that right now. Those in rural areas in the rural Midwest, those are the best jobs because you can command a serious price and it has value. It has true value.
I have a great story about that. So one of my cousins who I met with at our family reunion a few weeks ago, he was in the Air Force. And when he got out of the Air Force, U.S. Air Force, of course, Canada doesn't have one, I don't think. But, he went and took a course. It cost him $2,000 to learn how to be an electrician and get his ticket. And now he's doing the electrical at the new Detroit hockey arena that's going to replace the Joe Louis Arena. He says he makes more money now in a weekend than he used to make in a month in the military.
Oh my God.
The need for these like fine, like high skilled trade jobs.
Oh yeah,
There's
for sure.
Not enough people doing it because our generation, Kevin, you remember when you were in high school? I don't know if it was the same there, but here it was like, you got to become an engineer. Become an engineer. That's what the jobs are.
Yeah.
Right? Get an engineer and
or programming.
Or programming. You got to do that kind of like CAD or programming, and that's what the jobs are. It's like,
oh yeah.
Well, now it's not sexy to do trade jobs. So there's barely any people who do that. My parents wanted someone to come and fix the back balcony on their house, and they're waiting like weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks for someone to come and do it. Nobody wants to do it because there's bigger jobs to do. There's not enough tradespeople.
Oh yeah, we see that in my area all the time. People are just too booked up, and there's not enough of them.
Yeah, and actually, that's a really good point because as we were talking about trades and construction, our product delivery times are super delayed now in Vancouver because there just aren't enough trades. There's a shortage of trades around here. So homeowners who bought their house, let's say 2 years ago, who are expecting their house a year later, have to wait 2 years because trades just are all booked up, and then they have to come later. It delays the construction schedule, and you get your house later. Yeah, it's a huge panic, huge nightmare.
Yeah, it's all down to human resources, and you can't just like grab someone off the street and then teach them overnight how to do a trades job.
Yeah, no, it's fine skill.
So it's a big fuck up in terms of managing the workforce. They really fucked up, and these tradespeople are going to be very well off.
Oh
and
yeah,
people who are doing the jobs we were told to do. I mean, do you really need people to design a house, like to go on CAD and do the architecture? Like, is that really necessary? It's based on rules, like.
Yeah, that's an AI job for sure.
Yeah, it's based on engineering rules and physics principles and things like that. I'm sure somebody can program a computer to do that. and then you can lay off a lot of architects and engineers. And I mean, like, I'm not like trying to be one of these technological priests like Mark Zuckerberg who wants to be like the new pope, telling everyone that we're going to replace everybody's jobs, and then we're going to give everyone a guaranteed basic universal income, and you're just going to be able to sit there and go on Facebook all day long and say, like, I'm feeling sad today, and then everyone goes, "Oh, here's an inspirational quote for you. Just stick with it, and everything will be fine."
Oh man.
Then they got the life coaches
Totally,
on Facebook, and yeah, it's just a echo chamber of garbage. And that's the future he sees. And I'm definitely not saying, like, let's hurry up and automate every job out of existence. I mean, it's got to be done in a smart way. But there's definitely things I don't want to see. I don't want to see more regulation. I don't want to see new branches of government created to manage new technological environments. I mean, we've done that. And what we end up with is mediocrity and obstacles. So with the Bitcoin and the cryptocurrencies, I don't think the answer is to give it to the Fed to control. I don't think the answer is to create another branch of the government. The administrative state is already way, way, way too fucking big and overreaching. I think it's just a matter of, if something gets too big or it gets out of control, you manage it with other technology. I think technology is the new government. We just are learning how to use it to govern different parts of technology. So with AI, for example, the answer isn't to create the president's official new declaration of this branch of the government, that there's a new committee that's going to be in charge of deciding, auditing software companies to make sure their AI is like okay to use. It's going to be like the encryption. If you work on it, if you make products that use encryption, get the hell out of the United States. Because if you do that, your company is fucking screwed, because you're not allowed to sell your software outside of the US. Because the US has laws that you cannot export encryption products.
Yeah, national security.
Because of national security. And I mean, it could be, I made a web browser and it uses encryption so that when you send your credit card across the internet, it doesn't get stolen.
I don't know. For me, the big thing is that there's a kill switch for AI. Somebody has to have their finger on that button.
But the kill switch is other technologies that are more powerful than that. Remember, the beauty of technology is the obsolescence law, okay? The law of obsolescence. It's one of the 4 laws of media from Marshall McLuhan. Obsolescence means there will be something that comes and trumps that thing. There always is. And then every new environment comes in, smashes the old ones. But there's something that's going to smash that environment next. So what we have to do is we have to allow these environments to come in, and the new one comes in at the right time to smash the tyranny of the old one. It happens naturally. It's a new nature law now that we're under technological law.
Well, I mean, for me, that would be non-physical. I mean, that is the trump card for AI.
Yeah, non-physical technologies. Technologies that have transcended the laws of physics, basically.
And you've experienced that, Chad. I've experienced it. Everybody on the call here has experienced it. So I don't know what goes beyond that besides ourselves eventually, but
we don't know. We can't really see like 2 environments ahead.
Yeah,
we get a sense of what's coming. We've got our ear on the train track. Okay, we can hear the next train that's coming. But what we don't want to do, we got to learn from the past. I mean, it's always been trying to govern these environments. It always ends in destruction. It ends in like ruin. It ends in like degeneration. You can't stop the train. Okay, so we have to let this shit play out and stop thinking we have to create committees to control it. Because as soon as you do that, all you're doing is you're retrieving an old environment to control the new environment. Then the new environment, it's like putting up a dam, okay? You're building a dam, but the water is still building up on the other side of the wall.
Yeah, it just doesn't stop.
Yeah, sooner or later, the water gets bigger and stronger and it's going to break the dam.
Well, I guess that's what's exciting about living in this era. We get to watch these things. We get to experience these things.
And that's the biggest thing, is that we've moved in terms of like what laws govern our world. We've moved out of, natural law and the laws, the written codified laws of human beings, and we're now in the laws, like technological environment law. And one of the ways that that's changing society is, I don't think people are going to be settling down in one place as much anymore. We now have the ability, it's pretty easy now to just keep moving around the planet. And if it wasn't for Airbnb and it wasn't for like all the innovation that's happened over the past 20 years, I wouldn't be taking this trip to Europe, where I'm going to Europe. I'm going for like 6 months, and I'm probably going to save money living over there, because compared to living in a real estate bubble in Canada, it's not only the real estate bubble, it's the cost of living. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know how there can be inflation like there has been over the past 10 years to the point where things cost as much as they do in Canada, but I can go into like Central and Eastern Europe and I can live for a half to even a third of the cost of living per month.
Yeah, you can live like a king.
Yeah, exactly.
There's the story of this elderly woman who retired, and she needed care, and she thought she was going to end up in an old folks home, like a retirement village or something, where you have a room and you can get meals, and if you need help, there's someone to help. She finally figured out that it was actually cheaper to sail around the world and cruise on a nice cruise liner all the time. So she just ended up staying until her death, cruising the world, because it was much less expensive than a retirement village.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I've heard of that too. There's these like 235-day cruise ships, and you just literally travel around the world. You're on a cruise for 230 days, stop at different areas, and it's just way cheaper. Yeah, it's like a lot of elderly people are actually starting to do that. I've heard that too. I think one of my family members was telling me that a couple weeks ago.
And it's called digital arbitrage now. Like, not in the case of the older lady, but I mean like for younger people that are in now earning money, working online, and they're not tied to any particular geographic location. There's a huge movement now called digital nomadism. There are big communities online where people exchange tips and stories about, okay, I went and worked in Prague for the last month, and this is how much it costs, and this is where the best cafes are, and here's the best grocery stores, and blah, blah, blah. I mean, just the amount of information that's available and the effect of having all this mobility, where you can say, like, I'm earning American dollars and I'm going to go living in the Ukraine, where their currency is so low right now that my US dollars go so far, I can live like a king for half the price of what it's costing me to live in North America.
Yeah, and that's something that I want to eventually get to as well. Like right now, I want to be able to have that financial independence to be able to just, get out of here for 6 months and, travel around. But I got to kind of get my financial power somehow, and working. I mean, unless you're in a very senior position at a company, you can't really do that. And even if you are in a senior position, you can't leave for 6 months. I mean, the most they'll let you go is like 2 weeks. You only get like 3 weeks off per year or something like that.
Yeah.
So, for me, kind of what I'm aiming towards, and Chad, we've talked about this in a couple conversations, is just to get that financial freedom by just taking your power back and starting your own business, and just kind of having no fear. Bob always says, act as if you cannot fail. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do now. Is I love my job. I love the company I work for. Everyone there is super cool and awesome, but it's like golden handcuffs. Like you're handcuffed, they're golden. Sure. So it's nice, and they treat you well and everything, and you get free Canucks tickets, and anytime there's a concert at Rogers Arena, you get to go watch the concerts and stuff. Like 2 weeks ago, I just randomly saw Kendrick Lamar pass by my office because we work in the arena. So it definitely has its perks, but I don't want to be doing that for my whole life. I want like some of the more senior guys have been working office jobs. They're 60 now. They're retired. Like, I don't want to do that. Like, I want to, as soon as I can, start getting my freedom and start my own businesses, kind of like Chad has, and be able to start traveling and do what I want, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you just got to get started on something. And, you know, we've talked about this before. Don't get caught up in the typical stages that people say, like, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this when you're starting a business. You know, oh, go talk to a lawyer, set up a corporation, and set up a bank account, and get an office, and buy all this capital, and make all these capital investments, and all this shit. Don't do that. Remember, you're trying to transition into a more fluid environment online. Okay, you're leaving the fortified, stationary world of business behind, and you're trading that in for the fluid world of mobility. And start thinking that way. Think lightweight. Think almost no weight at all with your business. So, what is a business? If you were to break it down to the most fundamental subatomic particles, it's three things: an audience, so a customer. Who is the customer? And I mean specifically. Like, define them as tightly as you can at first. The second thing is, what's a problem that you're trying to solve? And it comes with a solution. So you have a customer, you have a solution to their problem, and then you have an offer. Those three things. So go and find a group of people that have a problem, come up with a solution for them, and that's not enough. You need to be able to offer it them in a way that it's sweet enough for them to take it. So you can come up with those things on paper. You can write those down, go out and try them, call people up on the phone, pitch them, see if it works on that level first before your idea even touches the physical world. And that's how you have to think, and stay nimble as a digital entrepreneur and have mobility and avoid capital investments as long as you can until you've really proven your idea and you're making at least $1 million. And then you go, okay, how can I scale this up? So don't think about scaling. Don't think about your size until you're making at least $1 million off the business. Just prove the sale and keep trying the sale over and over again until it becomes like systematized, where you're like, okay, I know how to sell this to this kind of customer.
Yeah, and that article, or not that article, that podcast about Ryan Deese, how to Ryan Dice, how to create a perfect offer. I was listening to that on the plane ride back to Canada, and it's stuff like that that's helpful, and it's almost just obvious the stuff they're saying, but you just got to grow some balls and actually do it. That's kind of the biggest thing. Not a lot of people believe in themselves, take their power, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It is like one of the biggest power moves you can make in your life when you are on the golden handcuffs. I love that term, by the way. I'm going to, sorry, I'm taking it.
No, that's very good. That's exactly how it is, especially whenever you're stuck in an economy that's too expensive to live in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the beauty of this generation now that we live in. Everybody has access to mobility now if they are willing to take the steps.
Right. Yeah.
And I told you about the nomad capitalist. I think it's just nomadcapitalist.com. Now he's talking more to people that have already established a pretty big war chest of money, and they're looking for a place where they can go and buy a second citizenship for like $500,000. But at the same time, he says, go where you're treated the best. Okay. And Canada is definitely not the place where I'm treated the best. I mean, no fucking way. I'm sorry, but I don't like what my tax money is being spent on. I don't like hearing stories of soldiers being kicked off the bases to let migrants come in. I mean, if you want to be a first class now in this society, just walk across the border with come back with no identification, come back into the country with no ID, and just make up a name and say that you're seeking political asylum. And you will be treated better than a veteran that risked his life for this country. You will get health care, you will get dental care, you get a prescription drug plan and all that, and you don't even have to go fight for this country. So anyway, Canada does not treat me the best. That is absolutely for sure. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that I spent years building up the mobility I have now, because I've got my go bag ready and I'm getting out of here.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So if mobility is something you're looking for, then it's very easy to attain, but you must focus, take the steps to do it. And if you're not interested in mobility, check out the Nomad Capitalist, because he does a really good rant about people who stay in one place get punished for it. The way that the municipal, state, and federal governments are set up, and even the way that mortgages work and all that, and property tax is just set up to take. If you want to stand still, you are going to pay the price. You have more like extra extraneous costs for the luxury of standing still than you do for exercising mobility and moving to wherever you're being treated the best at the time. So it's interesting. Check it out, nomadcapitalist.com.
Yeah, I'll check that out for sure. Yeah.
But anyway, so that was a great conversation. I think we covered the digital nomadism to the degree we wanted to. We covered a little bit about, the migrant situation happening in Canada right now, and the whole thing about digital environments taking over statecraft and government. Is there anything? Do you guys want to talk about anything else at this time? Or?
You know what? I have a story for you guys, actually.
Okay.
So yesterday, I left my job and I was going to pick up my fiance at her job. Her car's in the garage. She needed a ride. No big deal. Now, take in mind that I'm driving through the back roads of Ohio, so there's not really a lot of stuff around. Okay, so I'm driving. I'm almost there, and I see a guy in jeans and a t-shirt running. Okay, and he takes a turn, and he's running down my road, and he kind of just starts walking, and I drive by pretty slow, and I look at him, and his shirt's all ripped up. He's got blood running down his face. Like, just The Walking Dead. All of a sudden, I see this zombie walking around. And so I'm like, oh, crap. What's going on here? So, like, I turn my car around, and I pull up to him, and I just crack my window. I'm like, hey, you all right? Do you need some help? What's going on? And this kid had no idea what was going on. He was in shock is what was going on. And he's like, oh, no, I'm fine. Oh, don't call help. Oh, no. And then he just takes off running down the road. Okay. And like I said, keep in mind, this is in the middle of nowhere. There's very few houses around. I'm like, oh, no. What's going on with this guy? He might just fall over into a ditch and die. So I end up calling the police. I call the sheriff, and I'm telling the sheriff where I'm at and everything. And it's so ridiculous. This kid's in shock, and I don't know how he's going to react. So I don't get out of my car. So literally, I turn on my emergency flashers on my car, and I just drive behind him a little, just real slow. And it's basically turned into a parade. Okay. And he's like looking at me, and he just keeps running. And finally he got tired, and he kind of took a break or whatever. Nonetheless, there was a church about a mile down the road, and he ran all the way there, and I got him to stop, and I kind of just kept his attention with, hey, where do you live? What's your name? How old are you? What day is this? And like, he didn't have a clue. And finally the ambulance gets there, and a sheriff shows up, and they just check this guy out, and they're like, yeah, he's got head trauma. Like, he's just completely in shock. Apparently, the sheriff found a mini bike down the road, which is just like a little fast motorcycle with tiny wheels that can go like 50 or 60 miles an hour. And apparently he just flipped it and flew off it. And So that was my interesting moment yesterday.
Wow, Kevin.
Oh my
I
god.
mean, like, you have some pretty creepy things happening in your neck of the woods.
Yeah.
Seeing a person in shock is unique. I will say that. They just have no idea what's going on. At points, they can have superhuman strength because their adrenaline is just rolling. But apparently, this kid got off work and he was just playing around on this bike, going fast down the road, and ended up in a ditch and flipped over. But just another day in the life in Ohio, I guess.
Yeah, jeez.
I thought you were going to say that he was like a parallel world traveler that came through a portal in Area 54 or whatever you've got there, that Air Force base in your backyard.
Oh yeah, right. Patterson is right there. Nope, not today, but yep, always interesting.
Yeah.
Hey, I got actually a question that's kind of
Sure.
related to what you were just talking about. I know you guys got to wrap it up in a bit, but about the different worlds that all of us are in. So right now, the world I'm in is not the world Chad or Kevin is in. Like, are we all in different worlds and all kind of on Earth, but the Earth we're on is slightly different? Like, is that kind of how it works?
Well, we don't overlap at all anyway. Like, there's never a point where we're in the same world because you have your own worlds. You have your own self-contained universes, like big ball of universes.
So, like, when I look outside in the sky right now, for example, the sky I'm looking at is different. Let's just say you're in Vancouver. The sky I'm looking at is different from the sky you're looking at.
Totally different. Even if we were side by side, it'd be the different one because you would see it
Wow.
differently. How do you know that you see the color blue the same as I do?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, talk to
Huh.
Bob about visual perception and audio perception sometime. He'll give you an earful.
That's so when I go outside, for example, when I see people, those people are in my world. So I'm not interacting with other worlds.
You're seeing their avatars. So there's no, like, you could try and run to the edge of your universe and you'll never actually come into contact with another creator.
Like, I wouldn't come into contact with you, you're saying?
You'd see my avatar, you'd see Kevin's avatar, meat sack avatars, but we can't create in your world. You ever seen the movie Inception?
Oh yeah, love that movie.
Okay, you know how when they go into somebody else's dream?
Mm-hmm.
So he brought the girl into his dream, and then he showed the girl like how to create by thinking. Okay, here's a skyscraper, there's a skyscraper. So when he tells the girl, like, okay, create a bridge over there, and she did, when she created in his world, all of a sudden all the people in his world came after the girl to kill her. Do you remember that part?
Yeah, yeah.
And that's accurate. That's in line with what we've been trained in, is if you can't create in someone else's world. You just can't do it. There's forces that make that, like, trying to put the toothpaste back into the tube.
Huh, wow, okay. I kind of had, like, when Chad, you and I were talking, I talked with Bob and Ion, that's what they're hinting at, but you just gave me a very clear answer as to how this all works. So thank you. Yeah, it's interesting.
Mm-hmm. The great thing about that you have people's avatars in your world is if you don't want them there anymore, you can expel them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Sorry, sir, not in my world. You're gone.
Yeah, not like the Queen of England. Yeah. Okay, interesting. So, wow, that just having that mindset makes it so much easier for me to just go out there and create and to want to start a business and to really believe that I'm going to be able to do it.
Well, yeah, when you realize it all begins with you. You're the first person that you have to convince that you can create a business idea, put it out into the world, and it'll come and you'll be able to harvest the fruits of that idea. But you have to convince yourself first. And that's all you have to do. Convince yourself that the actions you take are going to be backed by the full power of the entire universe. As soon as you decide to go ahead and do it, there's nobody in your world who can interfere and create over you or create against you. It's
Wow.
called extreme ownership. Jocko Willink, former Navy SEAL, he's got a great book out, him and his business partner, called Extreme Ownership. And it's very practical about how to run teams and things like that. But it comes back to that. You own it. Something goes wrong on the mission and you're the commander, you own it. And who's the commander of your world?
You are.
Yeah, exactly. You are. So
Yeah.
there's nobody walking the streets right now or in some secret back room anywhere that's controlling your life or standing in your way. If you see resistance, that resistance is coming from you.
Yeah, that's so interesting. It really all just comes down to you, and not just in business. I mean, like you're saying, just in other parts of, talking to people and just interacting and socializing. If you get angry or get sad or get scared, I mean, you're the one choosing to fear. You're the one choosing anger, and you can choose otherwise if you want. It's just really all down to you.
Exactly. Your life is a never-ending epic journey where you're confronting your own dragons along the way. Remember when you were a kid and you thought there was something underneath the bed?
Yeah, the boogeyman.
Yeah, because you're a child's imagination is it's just limitless, right? Imagining things under the bed. Right now, that sounds really fucking silly now. When you're a kid, it didn't. It kept you up at night. So as we go through life, there's things that we create dragons for ourselves. And eventually we have to slay those dragons. The best way to do it is just decide you're going to do something and then do it. Don't sit there and let it fester. Get out there and do it and know that you have 100% of the full support of the entire universe behind you. As soon as you buy in, because you're the boss. You can't just take a half step and go, all right, we'll see. Whatever the options are in life, whichever option comes and carries me off, I'll just wait for that one to come. No. You decide where you're taking this ship.
And it just comes down to just getting out of your own way and getting out of the labyrinth of your mind and just believing it sooner than later. I mean, if that's just one of the number one things I heard when I first started listening to Ion and Ginny Gunther, especially, and Carolyn, Dean, and Bob, it was just get out of your own way. Just get out of the labyrinth of your mind, and it's just going to be so much better after that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that's the big thing is you do not need to ask permission from anybody on any level. You only need to ask yourself permission. So, am I ready for this? Am I really ready to get going on this?
Or do I want to do this? That
Right.
whole want question is big.
Yeah.
Well, great. That is an awesome, powerful way to end this episode. I hope enough people listen all the way through, because I mean, like, that was probably the best part of the whole thing right there. If you can put that into play in your life, then you're going to have a lot deeper enjoyment of it. That's for sure. Nadar, thank you very much for stopping by.
Thanks for coming by, Nadar.
Yeah, thanks, Chad. Thanks, Kevin. It's I'm so happy I connected with you guys, and I hope I was helpful on the show. And anytime you guys want me back on, I'll be happy to come back.
That's great. And whatever you're doing there to go out on your own with your own business, go for it and get it done. And Kevin, thank you. Brilliant as always. Great input.
Hey, I had fun. I had a lot of fun. I loved listening to your critiques. And Nadar, it's good to get a different perspective. And I was glad you're here.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Kevin. I appreciate it.
All right,
guys. Have a great day.
You too.
Okay. Take care, guys. See you.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
This has been a Kinetic Media production, copyright 2017, all rights reserved.